everyone. We're going to start the proceedings. We don't have a quorum yet, but it's not quite 6:30 yet. But we're going to do the preliminary matters, the recognitions, and so I'm going to turn the meeting over to our Select Board Chair, Mary Ann LeBlanc Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. It is now my distinct honor and privilege to present the John J. Cronin Public Service Award, and I invite John Cronin to come up here to help me present the award. We are extremely pleased to announce that the 2026 John J. Cronin Public Service Award is presented to Josepha Jowdy. Josepha, would you please come forward? Josepha served on the Westwood School Committee for 27 years. An extraordinary tenure that reflects her steadfast commitment to our students, her deep devotion to public service, and her dedication to our community. I will now read the text of this beautiful plaque for the record. The John J. Cronin Public Service Award Committee annually presents Westwood's highest honor to an individual who has demonstrated remarkable service to the community. John J. Cronin, a longtime town treasurer, generously dedicated his time and expertise to the betterment of Westwood, both as an elected official and through countless volunteer efforts. In recognition of the spirit of community involvement that defined his life, we are proud to announce Josepha A. Jowdy as the 24th recipient of the John J. Cronin Public Service Award. For 9 terms, spanning 27 years as an elected member of the school committee, Josepha Jowdy dedicated herself to advancing the excellence of our public schools. Throughout her tenure, she worked collaboratively with 6 superintendents, providing steady leadership, strong mentoring, and an unwavering commitment to Westwood students and their families. As a proven leader, Josepha played a significant role in shaping the future of the district through major capital projects, including the construction of Westwood High School, additions to the Thurston Middle School, and renovations and additions to the Downey and Martha Jones elementary schools. Her leadership was also instrumental in the successful passage of the 2007 operational override, helping to ensure the continued strength and stability of the school system. Josepha's service to the Westwood community extended well beyond the school committee. She contributed her time and expertise to numerous boards and committees, including Aid to the Elderly and Infirmed, the Long Range Financial Planning Committee, the Obed Baker House Reuse Task Force, the Council on Aging Board of Directors, and the Westwood Food Pantry Executive Board. In 1978, Josepha became a real estate broker. As a current board member of Westwood Affordable Housing Associates, Inc., WAHA, she has used her professional expertise to help acquire properties and advance the organization's mission of expanding affordable housing opportunities in Westwood. A Westwood resident for almost 50 years, Josepha and her late husband, Raymond, raised 3 sons, Raymond, Joseph, and Alex. She is also the proud grandmother of Alexis, Ava, Ryan, Joey, Owen, and Gia. Josepha Jowdy's service to the Westwood community has been remarkable in many ways. She has advocated for students, senior citizens, and families living in our community. She has given countless hours of her time and talents and contributed to making Westwood a highly respected and welcoming town. On behalf of the John J. Cronin Public Service Award Committee, it is our great pleasure to present this prestigious award to Josepha Jowdy and to add her name to the plaque in Town Hall recognizing all those who have been so honored.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this award. It's been my great honor to be of service to Westwood. This town has been a wonderful home to me and my family for the last 50 years. When we moved to Westwood, we chose it, like most people do, because of the excellent school system. I had no idea how involved I would become in that system, but what I came to realize is that our schools are just one part of what makes this town so very special. We have a truly fabulous community here. I've gotten to know so many people. Even though Westwood has grown a lot since I got here, it still feels like a town where we all know each other. When I think about what service means in this town, it's not just the public things that we get recognition for. It's the people in this town who help each other out in ways that you don't see in a lot of towns and cities. I see this in the way the town has consistently supported new buildings like the library, the police station, a fire station that we built several years ago, and the schools that we've renovated and built. I see it in the school overrides. They have been passed, often with the support of people who don't have kids in the system, but who know how important our schools and public buildings are. More than that, whenever someone from our community is in need, people pitch in. I've seen more examples than I can count where someone gets sick and their neighbors organize to get them meals and to make sure that they're well taken care of. People come together around all sorts of causes, from an unexpected tragedy to a celebration of a neighbor's achievement. I'm often touched by how genuinely and persistently people here care for each other. It's our sense of community and service to each other that make Westwood so special. I accept this honor with deep gratitude and appreciation for all of the people of this town who have chosen to help each other in ways that don't always receive this kind of recognition. Thank you so very much.
It has been our practice at the annual town meeting to thank individuals who are moving on from their service as elected officials. And this year we have 3 individuals who have moved on from their elected roles. Dory Parmalee. Dory served as a member of the school committee from 2022 to 2026. Amanda Phillips. Amanda served as a member of the school committee from 2020 to 2026. And Robert Gotti. Rob served as a member of the select board from 2021 to 2026. Dory, Amanda, and Rob, if you are here, please stand so that we may recognize you, and thank you. On behalf of the Select Board, we extend our sincere gratitude to all of our residents who have served or are currently serving on our various boards and committees. Your time, dedication, and commitment are vital to the strength of our community, and we deeply appreciate your service. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I'd ask the gentlemen to remove their hats. We'll take a moment of silence for those who we have lost within the past year. In particular, Marilyn Fox, Raymond Jowdy, Daniel McIntyre, and Bob Rich. May they rest in peace. Now we're going to turn it over to our town clerk, Dottie Powers. She's going to swear in the newly elected officials.
Good evening. Congratulations to all who were elected to town offices at the annual town election held on Tuesday, April 28th. At this time, I would like our newly elected officials to stand as your name is called, to be recognized and to receive the oath of office. Is Mark Murphy here? Okay, you have a special one, okay? The assessors. So Mark, if you can stand alone, please, and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, having been chosen to assess taxes and estimate the value of the property for the purpose of taxation for the town of Westwood for 3 years ensuing, do swear that I will truly and impartially, according to my best skill and judgment, assess and apportion all such taxes as I may during that time assess, that I will neither overvalue nor undervalue any property subject to taxation, and that I will faithfully perform all duties of said office. Yes, thank you very much. That was a mouthful. You can stay standing if you want. I will call forward the additional elected officials. Eric Alden, Housing Authority, for a 5-year term. Is Eric here? Wendy Hickey, Library Trustee, for a 3-year term. Is Wendy here? Maureen Murphy-Vonneau, Library Trustee, for a 3-year term. Maureen? James O'Sullivan, Town Moderator, for a 1-year term. Philip Giordano, Planning Board, for a 3-year term. Timothy Heldania, Planning Board, for a 1-year term to fill a vacancy. Joanna French, School Committee, for a 3-year term. Nicholas Vidnovic III, for School Committee, for a 3-year term. Katie Willett, School Committee, for a 2-year term to fill a vacancy. Joseph Prevatera, Select Board, for a 3-year term. Erin Sibley, Select Board, for a 1-year term to fill a vacancy. And Frank McPherson, Sewer Commission, for a 3-year term. Is Frank here? Okay. If you could all please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name. I, James O'Sullivan. Do solemnly swear and affirm that I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my knowledge and ability, perform the duties of the office to which I was elected in accordance with the bylaws of the town of Westwood and the laws of the Commonwealth. Thank you. And before you leave this evening, please come forward to sign your certificate of oath if you not have already done so. And serving in these roles takes time and energy and care. Your leadership and commitment help keep our community strong, and it takes real dedication to step into public service. We are grateful to each of you for answering the call to serve Westwood. Thank you for your time and commitment to the Westwood community. And please, everybody, give me a hand in congratulating our newly elected officials. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we do have a quorum, so I will officially declare this annual town meeting to order. At this point, I would like to invite Julia Drainville and Ricky Bryant up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Come up right up here on the podium.
Hi, my name is Ricky Bryant.
Hi, my name is Julia Drainville. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, girls. And they also have the microphones. They'll be running if anybody wishes to speak. So now we're going to go over the review of electronic voting, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dottie Powers.
Actually, the first thing I want to talk about is, Hollister, do you want to come up here? So we have a new pilot that we're doing tonight. It's TextCast Pilot. So this is actually real-time captioning for anybody that's hearing impaired, or if you need a translation, there's 90 different languages. And I'm going to have Hollister speak a little bit of it. He's from Inclusion Solutions, and we're a pilot community tonight. There's only 2. Medfield's doing it as well. So
Thank you, Dottie. You're very progressive and forward-thinking, and doing what you can to make sure all your citizens can be part of it is wonderful. So if you look up on the screen, you may have received it in your packet with your warrant. There's a QR code if you scan that. There's also ones in front. I can walk around if you want to scan mine. If you scan that, it will pull up something called Sentio, and what that will have on it, it will have a button on the bottom, and it'll give you a text translation in English, like closed caption for the whole thing. But if you want a different language, if you want Spanish, if you want an Asian language, there's 90 different options. So this will make it more accessible to everybody. It should work for the folks at home. For the folks here, you can grab the QR code, and I'll walk around if anybody just needs and I'll be sitting over there if you have any questions about it. Thank you, Dottie.
okay. Thank you. Has anybody tried that yet? Okay, we're trying to be as progressive as we can here. So now what we're going to do is go through electronic voting. Go through the slides first. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, each registered voter received an Easy Voter keypad upon check-in, and this is what everybody has around their neck. These keypads are reliable radio frequency, and they're very secure. If you're asked to vote electronically, please select either yes or no on your device to cast your vote. So everybody, if you want to get out your keypad and take a look at it, they're small, but you see the first button, 1A in green, yes. So if you want to vote yes on an article, you want to press that. There's going to be 40 seconds to cast your vote, and then we close the vote. And everything will be on the screen, so you'll understand that. If you want to vote no, it's the red button, and that's 2B. Also, when you leave, just make sure that you leave your devices. We have people in the back that are checking, and you can't use these at home. You can't use them to open your garage door or anything else, so just make sure that you leave them here. So again, here's a slide up here to just go over what I had just explained to you. And we can go to the next. When is the vote counted? It's only respond when the vote is open. OK will appear on the keyboard display confirming receipt of the vote. If you're not sure, vote again during the 40-second allotment until the voting for that article is closed. You may correct your previous vote, but only your last vote counts. Recorded results will appear on the large overhead screen. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of fun here. We're going to test our devices. Is this your first Westwood Annual Town Meeting? So press yes if it is, and no if it's not. And the vote is open. So what we're going to do is we're putting a grid up, and you can see your numbers there. See if your number is on that screen. Lots of numbers there. Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to vote? Okay, so we're going to close the vote. Are you satisfied that your vote is registered? Everybody's device is working? Great. Is there somebody have their hand raised? Yours is not? Okay. Do you want to come up here with that? Okay, the vote is still open. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity and that everyone's device is working. Is that another one? And you have to just make sure that when you're voting that you wait for the okay to pop up. Don't keep on pressing it. We should have over 199 here, so that those numbers should be increasing. Everybody vote up here? Okay. Okay, looks like we're good. 199, that's how many people have checked in. Do you have the results? Okay, so 46 of you, this is your first town meeting, welcome. Okay, so now we're going to do another question. This is more fun. The town of Westwood was incorporated in 1879. Do you think that's true? Yes, if you think it's true. No, if you don't. Vote is open. Now we have more people checked in. Okay. No. And we did check these, just so that you know, all 2,000 of them, even though we didn't bring all of those here, but we did check them all. Okay, has everybody had an opportunity to vote? Okay, so we are going to close the vote. And what do we have for results? 77 yes, okay. So the first slide, if anybody paid attention, that's the town seal. 1897, the town was incorporated. And we have one more. Do you think the honeybee is the official state insect of Massachusetts? If you do, vote yes, and if you don't, vote no. Vote is open. Has everybody voted? Okay, we're going to close the vote. Okay, so the official bug of Massachusetts is the ladybug. And the interesting thing is a second grade class in Franklin brought this up to the legislature, and it was made a bill, and it was the official bug. And I have them all over my house. I don't know about anybody else, but, so that's it. Thank you. So everybody comfortable with the devices tonight? Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before we get into the protocols, I do want to recognize Congressman Stephen Lynch. He's here every year. He was a great ally of Westwood during COVID especially, and we thank you for coming. And we neglected to mention that we lost Eddie Germano recently. Eddie was the holder of the Boston Post. Kane is the oldest resident of Westwood. Lena at the Council on Aging is going to be representing the Kane soon, but just keep Eddie in your prayers. So now let's go over the town meeting rules. So we ask that everybody remain in the aisles, keep the pathways clear. You know where the exits are. In the event of an emergency, if the alarm sounds, there are attendees who will help you evacuate the building. And please do not re-enter the building until it's been cleared as safe. And we have members of the Westwood Police and Fire Department to help us. Okay, Patty? So this is our legislative body, town meeting. It's almost 400 years old. The very first town meeting was held in Dorchester in 1630. And town meeting was largely responsible for the Revolution because, particularly here in Massachusetts, we funded the Patriots leading to the Revolution. We are governed by Massachusetts general laws, the Westwood Charter, the Westwood bylaws, and then finally town meeting time, and in that order. We have microphones at the top of each aisle. If you wish to speak, please line up at a microphone and I'll recognize you. You cannot speak until I recognize you. When you do begin to speak, you need to state your name and your street address. People will have a 2-minute limitation on speaking, and you may only speak twice without permission of the moderator, twice on any particular article. Our town bylaws prohibit us from engaging in personalities. And what that means is you can't get up and say, I'm voting against this article because Jim O'Sullivan is supporting it and he's a lawyer and you can't trust anything lawyers say. That would be engaging in a personality. I want you to stick to the article in question. Limit your discussion to what we're voting on. All articles are in a yes-no format. So we're either going to vote in favor of the article or in favor of the motion or against. And try to keep your remarks on the article in question, and all remarks should address me as the moderator. We can't have people talking across the hall at each other. I'd like you to be respectful. I don't want you to criticize or boo or clap or cheer. It can be very intimidating. It's very difficult for some people to get up and speak in front of a group, and if somebody's booing at them, it's going to make them more uncomfortable. So please do not criticize, do not clap, do not boo, do not cheer, and do not videotape. This is being recorded by Westwood Media Center. If you want to know what someone has said, you'll be able to see it on YouTube and the WMC webpage. If you hear the gavel, that's your sign to stop speaking, and we'll address the point of order or see if your remarks are within the confines of the article. We may vote by clicker, we may vote by voice vote. I'm going to try to keep this as efficient as possible. If I think there's been very little discussion, and if I think there's no opposition to an article, I'll take a voice vote. That'll be quicker. If there's I'll announce what I think the vote is. If you doubt my interpretation of the voice vote, if 7 people stand up, then we'll use the electronic voting devices. Some articles are going to be, we know are going to generate a lot of interest, and we'll go straight to the electronic voting devices on those articles. So let's get some preliminary motions out of the way. I'd entertain a motion to waive the reading of the warrant. Is there a second? All in favor of waiving the reading of the warrant, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the articles? Is there a second? All in favor of the waiving me having to read all of the articles, say aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. I'd like a motion that we conclude by 10:45. However, give me the discretion to extend it up to a half an hour if I think we can conclude the business of town meeting within a half an hour. Is there such a motion? Is there a second? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. If we cannot conclude this evening, then this next evening, we'll have to come back tomorrow. So I don't know if I need to bring that to a vote, but if we can't finish tonight, we need 175 people to start the meeting before we would be able to conclude all the business at town meeting. So let's do what we can and do the best we can to try to get it concluded tonight. Okay. We have one article that all the articles come before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission. One of those recommendations is for indefinite postponement, which is kind of a tricky issue. When FinCom recommends indefinite postponement, they're asking you to vote essentially against the article. So a vote in favor of indefinite postponement means you do not want to vote on the article. If indefinite postponement passes, the article is dead, unless somebody moves to reconsider. If you would like to vote on the substance of the article in question, then you would vote against indefinite postponement. Once indefinite postponement fails, or if it does, then somebody needs to move the article, second it, then we can discuss the article in question. So here's another way of saying it. A vote yes would be against the article, or in favor. You can go back to that, Betty. In favor of indefinite postponement. A vote no would be you oppose indefinite postponement and you want to vote on the article. There's also such a thing called a motion for reconsideration. It can only happen once. This happens after we've voted on an article. If you want to bring it up again, someone has to move for reconsideration. To reconsider the article, 2/3 of you have to vote to reconsider it. If we don't get a 2/3 vote, we don't discuss the article again, and then the article is dead. Motion can only be made on the night the article was voted on. So if somebody votes tonight and we don't finish this evening, you won't be able to reconsider an article tomorrow. And don't forget, as Dottie said, these explode. There's a die pack as soon as you leave the high school. So make sure you leave them here. So I welcome you to the annual town meeting, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to our Select Board Chair, Mary Ann LeBlanc Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Ann LeBlanc Cummings. I have the honor of serving Westwood as the chair of the Select Board. On behalf of my colleagues on the board, I want to thank you all for being here at the 2026 annual town meeting. Your presence reflects a shared commitment to civic engagement and to the future of our town. Tonight, we'll be asking for your support on a number of important items, including the operating budget, a new approach to the FS1 project, zoning changes, and more. In a few moments, you will hear an update on the town's financial position and an overview on the budget articles. In short, Westwood continues to enjoy a strong financial position, evidenced by our AAA bond rating, the highest credit rating possible, which is in large part due to our sound financial policies, conservative budgeting, and our healthy reserve funds. We are continuing to invest in the town's capital infrastructure while also strengthening our financial position by increasing our reserves, an important balance that supports both today's services and our long-term stability. With the engagement of the community over the next few months, we are working to further develop a long-range capital plan, building on the work product of the Long-Range Financial Planning Committee, particularly the facilities studies performed of all of our school and municipal buildings. The town's strong position is what allows us to fund our renowned school system and deliver high-quality services to all of our residents. Our dedicated and professional town and school employees who deliver those services, whether they're teaching in the classroom, plowing our roads, responding to an emergency, organizing children's events at the library, assisting our seniors, or organizing recreational programs. These people positively impact our lives on a daily basis, and we are truly grateful for all that they do. Tonight you will hear about the FS1 Steering Committee's recommendation for feasibility and schematic design funding for a new approach to FS1. Last year, voters made clear that our approach and proposal for a new FS1 did not align with the community's priorities. We took that feedback seriously. In response, we convened a citizen-led group to evaluate alternative options and develop recommendations for a revised project. Tonight, we ask for your support to move forward with feasibility and schematic design on new options, and we are committed to moving forward in a way that reflects the community's input and earns your trust through open decision-making and measurable results. I believe we have now reached a consensus in town that we urgently need to replace FS1, particularly after the structural integrity of the apparatus floor failed in February. We want to thank the community for the overwhelming support expressed for the members of our fire department who perform life-saving and dangerous work for us every day, even in unacceptable work conditions. We also want to thank all of the residents who engaged in our Public Safety Community Forum back in October, and in all of the many meetings and community forums that we've discussed FS1 at since then. And we particularly want to thank the members of the FS1 Steering Committee who have performed a tremendous public service over these last few months. Tonight's vote will hopefully bring us much closer to a community-driven solution for our urgent need to replace our main fire station. All of the articles on the warrant before you tonight have been vetted by our professional staff and also by layers of public process. Some of the articles before you have come through the school committee, others from the planning board, others yet through the select board, and there is one citizen's petition tonight. Our town's governance relies on three key parts: town meeting as the legislature, the select board as the executive branch, and the Finance and Warrant Commission, or FinCom, to provide oversight and guidance. FinCom is an independent, appointed body of volunteers representing a cross-section of our community, the role of which is to determine whether each warrant article is in the best interest of the town, thereby serving as a check and balance in our democratic process. The names of the FinCom members are listed on page 4 of the FinCom book mailed to you, but many of you may not know who they are. While service on FinCom is a huge commitment, it is largely a thankless job. And I'd like to correct that now. by asking all of our FinCom members who are sitting here in the front row to please stand, turn, and face this public body so that you may be publicly recognized. I want to particularly thank FinCom Chair Bill Bruce and Vice Chair Michael Gay for their dedicated leadership. And yes, thank you. And I also want to thank, again, all of our volunteers on all of our town boards and committees, each of whom make personal sacrifices in giving so much of their time and talent to the town. In closing, Westwood faces important decisions, and tonight is a key step toward ensuring we maintain our long-earned position of strength to meet those challenges. At a time when cities, towns, and schools all across the Commonwealth are facing historic fiscal pressure, our community's longstanding commitment to fiscal prudence has positioned us well to confront the future. Thanks to the hard work of our staff, our citizen boards and committees, and all of you, we've come to this meeting well prepared. The decisions we make tonight on the 31 articles before us will help shape the future of our town. Westwood is a special community, not by accident, but by the care and commitment of its residents. Thank you again for your engagement. Our next speaker will give an overview on our financial position and budget articles. And I ask you to extend a warm welcome to him because this is his first annual town meeting with us. I am speaking of our new town administrator, Connor Reed. Town Administrator Reed joined us in February after an extensive search, bringing a strong record of achievement in municipal government and the very qualities our residents said they value most in the role. His impact is reflected in the praise received from the superintendent of schools in his previous community, who described Connor as, quote, one of the most capable, visionary, and principled leaders she had ever encountered in her 35 years in education and public service. She also noted his, quote, extraordinary ability to connect with people, building bridges across departments, committees, and community groups to unite them in pursuit of the common good, while fostering civic pride, inclusivity, and a rare sense of small-town connection in an increasingly complex and divided world. Please join me in welcoming our town administrator, Connor Reed.
Thank you, Marianne. I told myself I wouldn't make a joke right out of the gate, but for town administrator, I think it's probably all downhill from that introduction. So it was very kind of you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you to all of you for coming tonight. For those I've not yet met personally, my name's Connor Reed, and since this February, I've had the pleasure of being your town administrator. My career in public service begins more than 14 years ago in the town of Easton, where my career began, and I ended serving as the town administrator for 9 years prior to coming to Westwood. I was drawn to Westwood for many reasons: excellent public services and school system, strong commercial and infrastructure presence, and beautiful open spaces. But one of the most appealing things about Westwood was how engaged the residents of this community are. In my short time with you, I've been heartened not just by how welcoming you've been, but the level of interest that you take in the management of the town, the importance you place in planning for its future, and your desire to learn and participate in the process. And while not everyone sees eye to eye on every challenge that we face, I've yet to meet anyone in my admittedly short travels here who joins these discussions without a sincere love of this community and a desire to see Westwood thrive and succeed, and I expect to see that common bond here tonight. I look forward to working with all of you in the coming months and years to keep Westwood the great community that it is and to prepare it for the future, a successful one together as one community. I probably should have tested this clicker. I don't know how to go forward. There we go. All right, we're off to a good start. Maintaining the things that make Westwood a special place and preparing it for the future is actually a great segue into the budget overview. The operating budget and capital investment articles that you vote on each May touch every facet of our lives today and into the future. The roads that we drive on, the businesses that we patronize, the first responders ready to answer any call, and the excellent schools where Westwood's children thrive. I'm pleased to present the financial overview for all of you tonight to give you some helpful context before voting on these articles. You've likely seen more detailed information in the warrant book or online, and so this is really about a kind of high-level takeaway of information that's important before we vote. Westwood continues to be in a very strong financial position that's driven by the town's clear financial policies, consistently balanced budgets, strong reserves, and ongoing investment in our infrastructure and services. All of that contributes to our AAA bond rating, which is the highest possible, which is a mark of trust the market puts in our financial management, that also helps reduce borrowing costs and reduce costs to you. The budget that you're voting on tonight is the result of a year-round collaborative and public process. The Select Board and the School Committee work with our town and school departments to build the proposed budget, and then the Finance and Warrant Commission holds public hearings so that residents can weigh in. After that feedback, the final budget is brought to town meeting for a vote, and tonight is the final step in that process. That ongoing process ultimately leads to a key question. How do we balance all of Westwood's financial priorities in a given year? The answer is that we approach this in a comprehensive fashion. When we build the budget, we're not just looking at day-to-day services. We're balancing long-term priorities while at the same time investing in buildings, roads, and equipment, planning for long-term obligations like pensions and retiree benefits, and maintaining reserves for financial stability. The goal is always balance, meeting the needs of today with the services our residents and students rely on while planning responsibly for the future. As these priorities are balanced each year, this year was a challenging one. We continue to see significant pressure from rising fixed costs, particularly health insurance, which has increased by 25% in 3 years, mirroring broader market trends and almost certainly what you're experiencing in your personal lives. These are major hits to the budget that are largely outside of our control that we need to plan around. At the same time, there are increases in areas like special education, solid waste, technology, and public safety, our core functions of operating. On the revenue side, growth is limited under Proposition 2.5. So the approach this year was to carefully balance all of those different pressures and data points while maintaining core services and delivering a structurally sound budget. Before getting into any detail on the expense side of the ledger, it's useful to understand where the town's revenues come from. The majority, about 80%, comes from property taxes. That's really the foundation of how we fund town and school services in Westwood. We do receive funding from other sources of revenue, things like state aid, local receipts, and enterprise funds, but those make up, as you could tell, a smaller portion, and in some cases can fluctuate year to year. So while it's positive to have those multiple revenue streams, we do rely heavily on property taxes to fund our core public and educational services. Because of that reliance, it's important to understand Proposition 2.5. This law limits how much total property tax revenue a community can raise each year, generally 2.5% over the prior year plus new growth. That means that our largest revenue source is constrained while many of our costs continue to grow beyond that rate. There are tools like overrides and debt exclusions to raise additional tax revenue above that statutory cap, but those require an approval of both town meeting and at the ballot, and I'm very pleased to say, presenting the budget to you for the first time, that that is not what we are here to do tonight. This does not rely on an override. The only other way to permanently increase the tax levy without an override is through new growth, which is the construction of new or majorly improved property throughout town. This framework plays a major role in how we build the budget every year. To help balance against the pressure on the 2.5 cap on our taxation, the town uses a number of dedicated non-property tax funding sources for a variety of important capital and operating needs. The two main ones you'll hear about tonight and that you would see in your Finance and Warrant Commission booklet are free cash and meals and hotels tax. Free cash is essentially the town's version of retained earnings. It represents prior year surpluses from better than expected revenues or budget turnbacks from our operating departments. And it's been reviewed and certified by the State Department of Revenue as being available to the community to appropriate for various needs. We use free cash primarily for one-time expenses, like capital projects or contributing to reserves, rather than using the one-time money for recurring operating costs. This year's warrant proposes a meaningful investment of free cash across a variety of articles. However, as you can see on screen in the chart in the bottom right, the post-town meeting balance of free cash will still be well above our policy targets and the second highest balance in the past 6 years. The meals and hotels tax is another important revenue source for Westwood. The revenue is set aside in a dedicated fund and it has typically been used for capital projects to maintain your public assets. It currently has a balance of about $2.4 million and helps us invest in infrastructure without relying on property taxes. We also have other restricted funding sources that are used for specific purposes, including ambulance receipts, which are reserved to support ambulance-related fire services and have been growing significantly in recent years, mirroring the growing fire department call volume, as well as sewer retained earnings, which fund sewer infrastructure improvements. The key point in these types of funding sources is that they are purpose-driven, they are restricted in their use for certain spending, either by policy or state law, but they allow us to make important investments outside of raising additional property taxes. On the expense side, the largest portion of the budget is the operating budget. This includes schools, police, fire, public works, and community programs. About 80% of that is staffing. We are, at the end of the day, a human services organization. The quality of our services is a reflection of the people that we employ and the programs and the work that they do to serve you and your children. Because of that, most of that budget is set by contract, and the remainder that is not is put in a bucket called fixed costs, things like debt, capital, all of which are necessary to keep the town operating reliably. Article 3, which is your operating budget, funds all of those items. It's the foundation for every town and school service and program that we deliver throughout the year. For fiscal year 27, the proposed budget is $125.5 million, which is a 4.3% increase over the current year. This funds all core services in town, schools, public safety, public works, and more. It's important to note that without an approved operating budget, the town and schools cannot legally spend money, which would disrupt services significantly. So while all of the financial articles that are before you tonight garner thoughtful review by the Finance and Warrant Commission, Article 3 is particularly important because it supports the day-to-day operations our residents and students rely on. The key takeaway of your financial articles tonight is that the fiscal 27 budget is balanced and it is structurally sound. We are addressing cost pressures while maintaining core services and continuing to fund reserves and long-term obligations and liabilities. As your new town administrator, I'd be remiss not to pause on this point and acknowledge that this being your budget summary, that there is a budget for Westwood that is balanced and structurally sound, as Mary Ann had alluded to, is becoming less common throughout Massachusetts and not something that could be taken for granted. If you've followed the news, you've surely seen many communities and school districts around the state struggling significantly under the very real pressure of inflation, rising interest rates, stagnating state aid, and exploding health insurance costs. Operating overrides have more than doubled in communities around the state, and many communities are facing significant service cuts, layoffs, or over-reliance on their reserve funds just to make ends meet for 12 months at a time. I say this not to paint an overly rosy picture of what lies ahead for Westwood or to suggest that we are immune to the financial pressure going on throughout the Commonwealth, but that we are able to weather those pressures thus far is a testament to your collective decision-making over many, many years. So I'd like to acknowledge you, the voters of Westwood, for the prudent budgets that you have historically adopted, for your feedback on those budgets as they iterate each spring publicly with the Finance and Warrant Commission, for your volunteerism and your oversight on boards in committees like the Finance and Warrant Commission, the Select Board School Committee, and the Long Range Financial Planning Committee, and for your long history of thoughtfully building reserves, hedging against long-term financial liabilities, and maintaining the high level of public and educational services that make Westwood such a desirable place. With that overview of the budget, I'll quickly walk through the financial articles in your warrant that you'll be voting on tonight. Articles 1, 2, and 14 are adjustments to close out the current fiscal year 2026. Article 3 is the operating budget. Article 4 through 9 are capital investments funded from available sources. Articles 10 through 12 are contributions to reserve funds and long-term liabilities. Article 13 is for rescinding unused debt. And Article 15 is an appropriation to fund school-related litigation. Each of these articles plays an important role in maintaining the town's financial stability. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time to give you an overview of your finances and being part of a process. And now into the articles, Mr. Moderator, if I may. To spare you my getting up 16 times in a row, I'm going to present a couple of these in buckets. Articles 1, 2, and 3. So Article 1 and 2 are both related to closing out the current fiscal year. Article 1 in your warrant includes a transfer of $405,000 from the Finance and Warrant Commission Reserve Fund to support the snow and ice budget. Because this has been an extremely heavy winter, that amount alone is not sufficient, and so snow and ice costs are also included in Article 2. Article 2 includes several budget adjustments totaling $1.5 million, funded from free cash and ambulance receipts. In addition to the remainder of the snow and ice costs, a portion of Article 2 is standard annual adjustments for ambulance services and equipment funded through ambulance receipts. The remainder of Article 2 addresses police and fire salary budgets. These supplements are due to the nature of public safety operations, including overtime coverage for long-term leaves and injuries. To balance that operating reality and public safety against a desire to minimize future year-end transfer requests, the town will be incrementally increasing the overtime budget in police and fire in fiscal 27 in Article 3. And later tonight, you will be asked under Article 21 to accept a provision of state law to create an injured on duty reserve fund, which will stabilize those unpredictable and hard to plan for expenses, very similar to how a SPED reserve fund works in your school system. Together, Articles 1 and 2 ensure that we can properly close out the current fiscal year. As mentioned earlier, Article 3 is the main fiscal 27 operating budget. This will be voted on as one article. The moderator will walk us through Appendix D for a more detailed line-by-line once voting reaches that article, and that is on page 79 of the warrant book. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Connor. We'll address the articles one by one. If you would like to speak on an article, we have 2 standing microphones at the top of these aisles. If you're in the middle and you can't get out, we have Ricky over on your right and Julia on your left. They have microphones and they can come to you. We have a lot of open seats in the middle, and shockingly, every end seat is taken. So if somebody in the middle of your row wants to speak, Ricky or Julia is going to climb over you to get the microphone to the person in the middle. Article 1 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate or transfer the sum of $405,000, all is laid out in the article. Comes before you on the motion of FinCom that the town so vote. This requires a majority vote. Would anyone like to discuss Article 1? Hearing no discussion, we'll go straight to a voice vote. All in favor of Article 1, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 2. To see if the town will appropriate the sum of $1,516,000. All is laid out in the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This vote requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 2? Hearing none, we'll go straight to a voice vote. All in favor of Article 2, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Now we're on to Article 3, which is the budget. And the way we handle this is I'm going to read off page numbers, starting with 79 and going to page 85, I think. If anyone would like to discuss any issue on the page as I read it, please just shout out, hold, and we'll come back to it. Everybody understand? Okay, page 79. Page 80. Page 81. Page 82. Page 83. Page 84. Page 85. Appears we have bingo. Is there any discussion on Article 3? Would you please get up to the microphone? And remember, state your name and your street address.
Brian Kamaker, 95 University Avenue. Mr. Moderator, every year, of course, Article 3 is the budget, and it's a little concerning that we're sort of under pressure here, because if we can't vote no on anything, we either vote for it or the town can't operate. And that doesn't seem like much of a legislative body action. I mean, Congress doesn't work that way. It would be great in the future if there was a way that we could disagree with something and the town wouldn't stop if we voted no. So thank you.
I neglected to mention that this requires a majority vote, and it does come before you on the recommendation of FinCom that the town so vote. Is there any other discussion on Article 3? Sir?
Phil Dunkelberger, 125 Sunrise Road. Sort of in line with what the previous speaker said, the cake is baked and we're not going to take any particular action, either vote up or down. But I'd like to take this opportunity to make a general request or suggestion to town officials for the preparation of the budget for next year, so that perhaps some of the problems that I see or others may see can be worked out differently. So I just want to mention a couple of facts. The CPI in the Boston metro area for 25-26 was 2.6%. Wage growth in the Boston metro area 25-26 was 2.7%. Westwood spending growth for 27 is 7.7%. Increase in the average tax bill is 4.4%. Revenue from commercial valuation was 25% in fiscal year 91. It's now 12.3%. Long-term debt capacity is full and now requires an override for FS1 or any other of the many projects that we're looking at. And the proposed excess levy capacity is $0. That means the town is going to use every dollar that it is legally authorized to take from voters. So, in addition to that local context, there's certain definite deterioration of national economic circumstances will bring higher interest rates, inflation, and lower growth. So, is there anyone in town government that takes exception with any of those facts? It would be enlightening. I may have gotten something wrong. And is there anyone else that feels uncomfortable with the proposed 27 budget?
Mr. Reed, I think, is going to address that.
Sure, thank you. Just
Answer
limited
those
to
questions.
the overall budget, the 7% figure perhaps is citing all financial articles. I'm not certain, I don't have it in front of me, but the actual operating budget is a 4.3% increase. But your points are all well taken, that the fiscal environment we're operating within is not getting easier. The outlook is certainly not one that is something that we take lightly, and your feedback is well taken, so thank you.
Is there any other discussion on Article 3?
Yes, Eileen Siegel, 257 Alder Road. I'm back here. Jim, straight ahead.
Oh, okay.
Just in response to what the other two community members have stated, so my understanding was that FinCom meetings and Select Board meetings and Planning Board meetings were all open and we could go and listen throughout the year and understand what was being talked about and what decisions were being made. So my understanding was that is a place where we can be prepared and ask questions and learn more about the finances and financial decisions and things going forward. So while I do understand my other two neighbors making that statement, I was under the impression that those meetings were the place that we were able to use our voice and learn information before tonight.
Am I missing anybody else? Oh, okay.
David Atkins, 783 High Street. Just a question. I mean, if someone wanted to propose an amendment to the article, they could do that, right? Like could they propose an amendment like to change something in the budget, or is it truly an all or nothing thing at this point?
No, it is possible to amend an article. It has to be in writing. We need to see it ahead of time. You cannot increase a budget article, as I understand it, without a corresponding decrease somewhere else, because we have to pass a balanced budget or revenue source.
Thank you. I just wanted to, there could be, if there was something really controversial, someone didn't feel they got heard, and in the other meetings and whatnot, they could come to town meeting with an amendment and try to strike something out of the budget.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And that's why I read through all the pages. If somebody wanted to discuss any particular line item on the budget, we had an opportunity, nobody said hold. Who else am I missing? Is there a motion to move the question? Second. All in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. It's a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. We're going to use the voting devices for this one. So before you was Article 3. If you're voting in favor of the article, vote yes. And if you want to vote against the budget, vote no. And we're open. Voting is open. Anybody feel their vote is not registered? Okay. Are we ready? We ready? Okay. Close the vote. It is a vote in favor. All right, now Connor's going to come back up and talk about the next group of articles.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I'm going to just give a quick overview of Articles 4 through 10. Articles 4 through 9 are your capital budget articles, and Article 10 adds to our stabilization fund. Article 4 and 5 make up what is called the base capital plan under the town's financial policies. That's a kind of base level of investment in our assets in the town and school system that we target to show ratings agencies that we are engaging in upkeep, but also so that you have a good quality of life. You have $1.83 million for municipal needs, and $1.28 million for school needs. Both are funded with available free cash. This funding plan helps to maintain the things that we use every day. Article 6 proposes $760,000 for sewer capital, which is funded through sewer retained earnings. Article 7 totals $2.4 million for various additional capital improvements funded by free cash. Article 8 includes $1.18 million of improvements funded by the meals and hotels tax. And Article 9 includes items specific to ambulance capital improvements in the amount of $553,000 funded with ambulance receipts. A full list of capital projects, including their funding sources, is detailed in the town meeting book on pages 10 through 16. These investments are carefully planned, responsibly funded, and essential to the continued reliability and safety of the town and school operations. I want to point out that the total level of capital investment proposed across all of these articles is consistent with recent years being brought before town meeting, albeit with more reliance on free cash due to the availability of cash funding to reduce our relative reliance on borrowing, which will reduce our long-term debt, as well as reduce future debt payments that will pressure the town and school operating budgets for the benefit of the community. Article 10 is the annual appropriation to the stabilization fund. This is the town's main savings account to protect against unexpected future budget shocks, either on the expense side or macroeconomic downturns out of our control on the revenue side. It's a very important component of maintaining our financial stability, as well as the AAA credit rating that we receive. This article asks to transfer $125,000 from free cash to the stabilization fund. The balance of that savings fund is currently at $4.3 million, which is in line with our financial policies. Thank you again.
All right. Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,830,500 for municipal capital improvements. All is laid out within the article. Comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 4? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 4, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,280,000 for school capital improvements, all as articulated within the article. Comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 5? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 5, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 6, to see if the town will raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $760,000 for sewer capital improvements, all is laid out within the article. Comes before you on the motion of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 6? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 6, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $2,435,000 for additional capital improvements. All is laid out within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. And we do have someone who wishes to discuss Article 7.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Kraft, 30 Coach Lane. Firstly, I want to give great commendation to Todd Korchin and the DPW, who've done a great job. Todd, I'm chair of the Pedestrian and Bike Advisory Committee, and we work closely with Todd and his team throughout the year to help with recommendations on sidewalk and roadway improvements that benefit pedestrians and bicycle access as well. I just want to point out that for the past many years, we've been waiting for a vote on the Gay Street sidewalk. We're working now on the Canton Street sidewalk. Sidewalks are very important in our town. We've previously requested that there be at least a final decision on the Gay Street sidewalk, and that there also be set aside some of the Chapter 90 money that the town receives that would be devoted to sidewalk improvements in a more long-term way, sort of a reserve fund, as it were. So I thank you for listening. Thank you.
We have a woman up in the back.
Hello, Jamie Blakey at 21 Stonegate Lane. Last year, my children and I created a petition to request to have a sidewalk connecting Pheasant Hill to Stonegate Lane along the north side of 109. This is part of Article 7. We live on Stonegate, and every time we try to walk toward town, we feel nervous because we're forced onto the street of 109 since there is no sidewalk. If you've ever driven by Bubbling Brook, you know how fast people are and how dangerous that can be. The children can't walk to Sheehan, they can't bike, my daughter can't even go to Starbucks. It seems that we can't even go to Bubbling Brook without feeling like we might get hit by a car. So tonight's vote, it might be about other things, but we are hoping that this will take us one step closer to having a sidewalk, connecting us closer to the town and not feeling so disconnected. So on behalf of my children and all my neighbors who also live on the Hill and along 109 and on Reynolds Farm, we ask you to vote yes.
We've got a woman over here.
My name is Kelly Rickson, and I live at 1689 High Street between Blueberry Lane and Stonegate Lane. I, along with Jamie, are very passionate about this. I'm here tonight to ask for the town to consider improving the pedestrian access along this part of High Street. As many of you know, this is a narrowed, well-traveled part of the street, both by cars, bicycles, and by people walking. Without a sidewalk or another safe pedestrian option, it creates a real safety concerns for residents, families, and anyone trying to get through the area on foot. It has also taken a toll on all the properties along this road. The grass along the streets in front of our home and our neighbors have receded substantially. There is no curb that prevents anyone from coming onto our front of our property, and we've seen an increasing amount of vehicles, including large trucks, pull over on our property for several minutes at a time, which creates a safety problem for our children. Ideally, we would love to see a continuous sidewalk through this section all the way towards Pheasant Hill, but if a full sidewalk extension isn't feasible right now, I'd still encourage the town to be creative and look for other ways to make this stretch of High Street safer for more accessibility for pedestrians. Thank you.
I have a motion to move the question. It's seconded. All in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Now we're voting on Article 7. All in favor of Article 7, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 8 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,180,000 for additional capital improvements, I guess to be funded by the meals and hotel tax, all as articulated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 8? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 8, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $553,000 for additional capital improvements from other sources, funding from other sources. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that you so vote, and this article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 9? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 9, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. The end of Bucket 2, Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $125,000 for the stabilization fund for fiscal year 2027. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote, and this article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 10? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 10 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. Now for Article 11, I think School Committee Chair Mayor Plotkin is going to come up and present.
Maya Plotkin, 165 Clapper Tree Street, Chair of the School Committee. Article 11 deals with the Special Education Reserve Fund, which is a reserve fund that was established by the town pursuant to a Massachusetts statute to address unanticipated, extraordinary special education costs related to out-of-district tuition and transportation that occur in any given school year. Earlier this spring, on March 30th, the school committee requested and the select board approved a transfer of $680,000 out of that reserve fund to pay for unanticipated special ed costs that were incurred in the current 2025-2026 school year. This article asks for $680,000 from free cash to be transferred back to that reserve fund so that we can replenish and restore the amounts that were transferred out to ensure that the reserve fund has the full balance for the upcoming school year of 2026-2027. In the interests of full transparency, I do want to note that just last week, the school district received notification from the Commonwealth that we would be receiving over $400,000 in state funding for the current school year's expenses through the state's Extraordinary Circuit Breaker Relief Program. This is great news for us. However, we are still asking that town meeting tonight allocate the full $680,000 of free cash to the reserve fund in order to make that fund whole and to allow the school to close out its fiscal year on June 30th. The school district will then turn back the approximately $400,000 to free cash upon the close of the fiscal year. Thank you.
Article 11 is to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $680,000 for the Special Education Reserve Fund. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 11? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 11 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Now Connor Reed's going to come back up and talk about Articles 12 and 13.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 12 is funding for our OPEB liability, which is Westwood's share of future retiree health insurance costs. The annual appropriation into that account for next fiscal year is $1,615,000. Both the stabilization fund and our contributions to the OPEB liability trust fund are important factors in the town maintaining its bond rating, reducing future financial risks, and remaining in compliance with our financial policies. Article 13 rescinds a portion of previously authorized but unused borrowing capacity related to the Pine Hill Elementary School project. The project has been completed and the full borrowing authorization that town meeting voted on in the past was not needed. As a result, this article reduces unused authorized debt by approximately $233,000 with no impact on services or taxes. This is really a kind of financial housekeeping article that reflects responsible financial management and preserves future borrowing capacity. Thank you.
All right, Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,615,000 for the OPEB Liability Trust Fund. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This vote requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 12? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 12 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. It appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to rescind certain authorized but unissued borrowing balances. All is laid out within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 13? All in favor of Article 13, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 14 and 15, I think Chair Plotkin's going to come back up.
Article 14 asks for a transfer from free cash to the school district in the amount of $345,000 to fund contracted services for instructional aides and ABA tutor positions for the current fiscal year of 2025-26. As you may have heard, the school district experienced an unusually high number of vacancies in these positions, 23 in fact, most of them occurring in the 2 weeks immediately prior to the first day of school. As a result, the district ended up using contractors to fill those vacancies to ensure that the district continued to provide legally required services for students without interruption. This transfer from free cash addresses the net cost of those contracted services above what was budgeted for employee salaries. We believe the vacancies this year were an aberration, and we've taken proactive steps to prevent this situation going forward. In the meantime, however, we are asking for this amount tonight to make up the difference in our budget and to allow us to balance our budget at the close of the fiscal year. With Article 15, the school district is requesting a transfer from free cash of $435,000 in anticipation of an upcoming litigation judgment. I wanted to provide a short summary of that litigation so that residents are aware of the need for the transfer. This case implicates the method that the district uses to calculate how teachers earn professional teaching status or tenure. In 2020, the district chose not to award PTS to a teacher who then sued the district, challenging the district's PTS calculation method. The case proceeded to binding arbitration, at which Westwood defended its calculation method and won. The plaintiff appealed to the Massachusetts Superior Court. Westwood won again. The plaintiff appealed to the appeals court, which sided with the plaintiff. The Supreme Judicial Court subsequently declined to further hear the case, so the appeals court order stands. This case is now back before the original arbitrator, who will determine the amount of back pay and other related damages that the plaintiff is entitled to. Since the SJC's decision, we have been in settlement negotiations with the plaintiff. Those negotiations have not yet resulted in an agreement. Because the arbitrator will likely issue a judgment in the next coming months, we are requesting a transfer from free cash of $435,000 in anticipation of that upcoming judgment. This amount is for a payment that will go directly to the plaintiff for damages and not for legal fees incurred in connection with the litigation. All legal fees have been handled through the district's legal expense line item in our operating budget. To be clear, the subject matter and the merits of this case have been litigated through the courts, and it is now at the judgment stage, which means the town will have to pay the judgment. Therefore, the only question in front of town meeting tonight is where those funds come from. With this article, the school district is requesting that those funds come from free cash. If the article is not approved, the school district will have to find these funds elsewhere, potentially from its operating budget, which will likely result in fairly drastic cuts to the district's budget. For that reason, we are asking residents to approve the transfer of funds from free cash to the school district to fund the future judgment amount. Thank you.
Okay, Article 14 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $345,000. All is stated within the article. Is there any discussion on Article 14? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 14, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $435,000 for the school litigation that Chair Plotkin just mentioned. It comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 15? Okay, Nadi, you want to go up to the microphone?
Nada Milosavljevic Fabrizio. Do I need to say my address too?
Please, your street address.
32 Webster. I don't understand. I think the school department has a, $59 million budget for fiscal 2026, and I don't understand why they're asking for us to provide the funds from free cash.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tim Pavolvar, School Superintendent. This is a one-time expense. As a one-time expense, in order to offset the operating budget would hit recurring costs that would result in a $435,000 reduction in the operating budget, which is roughly about 4 FTEs, since 80% of our budget is salaries. It will result in a reduction of staffing, which will result in a reduction of services to students. As a one-time expense, we're asking out of free cash as an appropriate use of free cash funds. Thank you.
The woman up head of the aisle.
Siegel, 257 Alder Road. So I'm a teacher, 21 years. Things happen. Things happen in private companies. Things happen publicly. There are disputes, there are disagreements. And it is never okay to ask children to pay for things that adults decide. So I appreciate the school committee asking for this to be taken from free cash. I think it would be unfair to take it from our children, and I hope that the town votes that way.
Is there any other discussion on Article 15? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 15, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. Article 16, I'm going to recuse myself on and turn the podium over to Paul Fitzgerald, one of my two very able assistant town moderators.
Comes before the town meeting as a petition article to amend the general bylaws, Chapter 138, Section 138, regarding subsection 17, regarding the rules of debate for town meetings, specifically to the means and method by which votes are recorded and taken at town meeting. This comes before the town with a motion from the Finance and Warrant Commission for indefinite postponement. As the moderator indicated in his opening remarks, indefinite postponement, if it were to prevail, means that this article will not have any further consideration at this town meeting. If you wish not to have any further consideration when the vote is called, you will vote in favor of indefinite postponement. If you wish to have a consideration and discussion and ultimately to vote on the merits of the petition article, you will vote against indefinite postponement. Is there any discussion on the question of indefinite postponement? Seeing none and hearing none, we will call a vote. This requires a majority vote. Those in favor of the Finance and Warrant Commission's motion for indefinite postponement will say aye. Aye. Those opposed shall say nay. It appears to be a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement. It is a majority vote in favor of indefinite postponement.
We're now on to Article 17. Okay, there's no presentation on this one. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to approve the certain housekeeping amendments to the Westwood General Bylaws. All is laid out within the article. This comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a two-thirds vote? Two-thirds vote. Is there any discussion on Article 17? Just a moment. Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 17, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 18, see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 200A, Section 9A, or take any other action thereon. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 18? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 18 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Appears to be a majority vote in favor. It is a majority vote in favor. Article 19, see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to accept certain parcel of land, all is laid out within the article. This relates to the Obed-Baker House and the wetlands surrounding it. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. Because it involves the taking of land, this article requires a two-thirds vote. Is there any discussion on Article 19? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 19 say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 20, see if the town will vote to transfer care, custody, and control of a certain parcel of land known as the Deerfield School. This comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. Requires a two-thirds vote, and Molly Fitzpatrick is going to do the presentation for this one.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Molly Fitzpatrick, Deputy Town Administrator. This article will finalize the transfer of care, custody, and control of the Deerfield Elementary School to the Select Board. On November 20th, 2025, the school committee voted to transfer the property to the Select Board, recognizing that the building is no longer needed for core educational purposes, but continues to support broader community needs. The property currently houses the town's IT department, Westwood Media Center, and portions of the buildings and grounds are also utilized by the town's recreation department for programming. The school committee's action reflects an effort to align ownership and operational costs with current use and long-term municipal planning. Accepting this article allows it to be potentially serve future public facilities needs without any acquisition costs to the public. Accepting this article does not initiate or commit to any specific reuse of the Deerfield site. Any future municipal reuse would still require permitting. Additionally, any future sale of the property could not occur without a prior vote of town meeting.
Is there any discussion on Article 20? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 20, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a two-thirds vote in favor. It is a two-thirds vote in favor. Molly's going to present again on Article 21.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This article authorized acceptance of a provision of state law allowing towns to establish a special reserve fund to offset the costs associated with injuries borne in the line of duty for police officers and firefighters. Under existing law, cities and towns are required to cover the salary and cover medical expenses for any injury borne in the line of duty, as well as certain presumed work-related chronic medical conditions. Often, the town must also backfill work-related absences with overtime, adding additional expense. Because the financial impact of these incidents can vary significantly from year to year, budgeting for them can be a challenge. This reserve fund, if adopted, will provide an important mechanism for the police and fire departments to manage these fluctuations more efficiently, helping to ensure adequate coverage for unplanned expenses without permanently increasing the budgets of those departments at the expense of other town or school operating needs. Any appropriation to the fund requires the vote of town meeting. Distributions must be consistent with state law and can only be made with the approval of the Select Board at a public meeting.
Article 21 is to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of the fourth paragraph of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 111F, and establish a special injury leave indemnity fund in the amount of $200,000. All is stated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a majority vote. Is there any discussion on Article 21? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 21, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 22, there will be a presentation from Connor Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We're here tonight to speak about Article 22, which is a request to appropriate $325,000 of free cash for feasibility and schematic design services for a new approach to the Fire Station 1 project. Many of you have followed this project closely, and even if you haven't, you likely know that the previous plan did not win voter approval. Tonight is not about bringing that exact project and design back for a third vote. It's about authorizing the funding to get us to a new FS1 project that the community can support. I'd like to quickly anchor the why and not make the assumption that everyone has driven by the station or seen it for themselves. Why does it matter to fix FS1? The building is at the end of its useful life, or frankly, far past it. It has structural issues, safety concerns, and it does not meet modern code or accessibility standards. There are also operational and health safety challenges, like turnout gear stored in the same space as apparatus, exposing the firefighters' clothing and gear to fumes. The building continues to deteriorate, and this winter, structural engineers deemed the apparatus bay unfit to continue holding up the heavy fire vehicles, forcing the expenditure of money on short-term and emergency repairs. The town, as you saw and voted favorably on earlier tonight, makes a conscious effort to invest in its infrastructure. But when we are spending on emergency repairs on a building of this age, that is not spending on an asset that you as taxpayers and residents are going to get a return on investment on. There is broad consensus that the existing station's condition is not acceptable. But even when we agree on why something is a problem, how we fix it is just as important. The town knows that the process it used last year failed to meet your expectations, and that we need to do a better job bringing Westwood residents into the process from the jump. And that's why the board appointed the citizen-led FS1 steering committee, the vice chair of which, Jody Petroselli, is going to join me to explain the committee's charge, how it approached their work publicly, and what they ultimately recommended to the select board and to you tonight at town meeting. Jody.
Good evening. As Connor explained, after receiving community feedback, a citizen-led FS1 steering committee was created to reset the process for replacing the now failing fire station. We were asked to start fresh, assess the needs of the station, evaluate potential locations, and ultimately make a recommendation for the construction of a new fire station. As a committee, we recognized from the very beginning that the earlier proposal failed despite the majority of citizens agreeing and understanding that a new fire station was needed. I was one of the reasons that that failed. I voted no, both times. I, and I think many people like me, voted no not because we didn't want to spend money for a new fire station. We voted no because when we asked questions like, why are you building on the same location? How exactly did you determine what size this new fire station needs to be? What assumptions did you make about the future growth and needs of the fire station and the community? We couldn't find satisfactory answers to those questions. Our committee,
under the leadership of Ford Spalding, our chair, who's sitting right here, is committed to a different type of process, a process that is open to the community, takes into consideration community concerns, answers questions, and listens to feedback. And we've done this. Every meeting that we have had has been recorded, and you can watch those recordings. I think it's 16 we're up to in the past 5.5 months. Every document that we have looked at is available online for you all to see. We have held about 6 community conversation events where anyone can come, ask us questions, and we will answer them. And then we take those questions and the answers that we gave, and we post them on our webpage so that everybody can see this. And one other thing that we've done is we sent out a survey. And what we learned from that survey is that over 80% of the people that answered that survey told us that it was important that we fully evaluate all available site options before making a recommendation. Now, one of the questions that we've heard, everybody has heard, is, can't you just build a smaller station on the existing site? The answer is, yeah, probably. But what exactly does that mean? It's important to understand that constructing a fire station on the existing site, because of the steep slope of that land, is both complicated and costly from a construction standpoint. Exactly what does that mean? How does the cost of building there compare to the cost of building a station at a different location that doesn't have those concerns? Will building a smaller fire station there force us to sacrifice something that the fire department needs right now? Or will it put us in a position where we have to do an expansion or even a third fire station sooner than we otherwise would have wanted to or needed to? The answer to all those questions right now is we don't know. It is the funding of this Article 22 that will allow us to answer those questions by giving us the money to do feasibility design and analysis. And it will allow us to answer those questions with facts and real data, not assumptions. We have looked at, through the course of all of these meetings, many, many possible locations. And you can go to our webpage and you can see exactly how many possible locations we looked at. And we identified 3 sites for further study. These 3 sites meet the initial operational criteria and warrant deeper analysis. In other words, they have the potential to meet our needs. Those are the location of the current fire station at 637 High Street, the property around the Deerfield School, and the town-owned land that is behind 736 and 738 High Street, which we generally refer to as the land behind Starbucks. Feasibility work will allow us to compare these 3 sites side by side using consistent professional standards. And the last thing I'd ask you to keep in mind is that doing feasibility at Deerfield and Starbucks, even if those sites are not ultimately chosen as a recommendation for the fire station, isn't wasted. Those are both publicly owned land. Any future use of those land that the town decides on will require this type of feasibility analysis. So regardless of where the fire station ends up, all the work done on those sites will provide reusable data that has long-term value to the town that can be used for future uses of that land. I'm not going to stand here and tell you all the reasons why we need a new fire station. Everybody knows that. But I'm going to ask you, for the reasons that I just discussed, that you vote yes on Article 22 so that we can continue to do this process the way we've been doing it, as a fact-based, community-inclusive way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. So looking at the specifics of Article 22 in your warrant, Article 22 funds feasibility and schematic design. In simple terms, that will tell us what can be built, what challenges exist, how a station would function on these sites, and what each option would realistically cost, including whether a different site perhaps opens an opportunity to address one of the most consistent concerns voiced by members of the community, which is the cost of constructing the project. It allows for a true apples-to-apples comparison of sites, including items that we know residents care deeply about because they've come to meetings and told us, like environmental impact and traffic. It also includes continued public engagement. This is not a nice to see you, some beautiful May night, you vote yes on this, and we never see you again. You will see a lot of us publicly talking about this project, forums, meetings, opportunities for continued community input. Most importantly, it gives us the information we don't have today to make the most responsible recommendation on a new FS1 project to bring back to you, who will have the final say on the project. It's just as important to be clear about what this article does not do. This article does not select a site. We've heard from residents who prefer one site over another, and that's understandable. This article does not preordain where the new FS1 project recommendation would be. It advances a process to weigh that public sentiment with project data to work together as a community on narrowing the options, hopefully to one consensus recommendation. This article does not finalize a design. If this is approved, we will competitively rebid architectural and design services, regardless of where the feasibility process is leading as far as a preferred site. This article does not fund construction. It does the work to tell us what you can expect to pay for construction before we ask you for a vote to approve it. And it does not increase taxes, as it is funded with free cash. Any future construction project requiring a debt exclusion, in the interest of complete transparency, would have a tax impact. We don't have the answer on what a new FS1 tax impact would be until we come up with a preferred site, building, project scope, and budget, and you will have that information before you are asked to vote on the new project. That would have to go back to an additional town meeting, and if it's a debt exclusion, to the ballot where everyone in Westwood who's a registered voter would be entitled to vote. This request, as I've mentioned, is funded through free cash, which we've talked a bit about tonight. It's one-time funding generated from prior year surpluses. It is not a tax increase, and it is not taking money away from ongoing services or needs in the town or school departments. Using free cash for one-time planning efforts like this is a best practice. This new feasibility and schematic program is not about spending money simply to say that we did, to say that we did it again. There will certainly be valuable baseline data from the previous studies and design that may save time and expense this go-around. With the full understanding, however, that based on the votes of this community, which was to reject that design, a design which was built on that feasibility study, that was rejected twice. So there will unfortunately necessarily be some new spending to get to a new FS1 for the community. Now, some of you, I recognize, I've seen at some of our forums, I've seen at the Finance and Warrant Commission, you may be asking, didn't we do this already? Didn't the town already do a feasibility process? Didn't we pick a site? And the answer is yes. A previous study was performed, and it formed the basis of that 2025 design that failed to win your ultimate support for construction twice. Without putting that exact project back up for a third vote, we do need to reassess and take a new look for a new project. Even if we ultimately end up with a new project that perhaps is designed different or looks different or is a different size at the existing site, which is very much an option under Article 22, we would still need this step for new funding to get a new schematic design and a new project scope and budget. This approach reflects what we have heard from the community. Getting here has been more transparent. This will evaluate more than one site option at a deeper level of detail. Again, folks have been doing their homework, which is a good thing. One of these two off-site recommendations was looked at. The land behind Starbucks in the prior study was looked at, but it was a desktop level review. It is not the same level of analysis that this process would include. This process also brings in outside expertise earlier in the process. We competitively rebid project management services, and there is a contingent award to a new firm, which would be a fresh set of eyes on this project's scope, budget, and design. We've done these things because we understand that a technically sound proposal is a really important baseline, but it's not enough. It needs community support, and we need to show you our work. We need to bring it to you here tonight in town meeting earlier in the process, so that the first vote that you take is not on advancing the design of a building that has already been picked. And to do this, to try to earn your trust on this project, because we know that without your support, there is no project. Article 22 funds the next step to do that work, to get us to the right building on the right site at the right price in a way that reflects community input and sets this project up for success. I thank all of you for coming tonight, and also the folks who have come out throughout the process, the citizens on the FS1 Steering Committee for their tireless work on this project on behalf of your neighbors. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank the men and the women of the Westwood Fire Department dealing with the challenges of the current station, yet still giving their all to serve this community every day. Thank you.
Article 22 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from existing funds the sum of $325,000 to pay the costs associated with the feasibility and schematic design services for Fire Station 1. All is laid out within the article. Is there any, this comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote, and this article requires a majority vote. I see two people. We'll start on my left in the peach.
Good evening. Raymond Saig, 148 Alder Road. First, I'd like to thank the steering committee for its efforts and its time. I was wondering if if any detail was available as to the firm that was wasn't named but was identified as who we're using in collaborating with on this project at this level.
Sure, thank you. The, again, contingent award for the firm is to a firm called PMA Consultants. This is an owner's project management firm that was one of many who bid on the procurement. And for the sake of public interest, we know there's a lot. We did interview those final firms on, I don't know if it counts as television anymore, Westwood Media Center. So those full interviews, including their talking about their proposal and their project approach, are available online. I think that's it is on the FS1 webpage. And I'll just acknowledge two things, again, in the interest of transparency. I have worked with this firm in prior communities, and so there was a design procurement review committee. It wasn't a decision made by a single staff person. And again, those final interviews were public, and what PMA specifically really led with was how important it is in their approach to have very good public education, very good outreach and transparency into the project and into its cost drivers, bringing people into it, and that they really put that at the center of their approach. They've also come into other communities in the past where a prior design has failed to win support, and working with the community found a way to turn that around and get a project that voters could get behind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we're going to go over here, and then I'm going to go up to Ricky. You have somebody identified, and then Julia, you have somebody identified. Then we'll come back to this microphone and this one. So, Ms. Driscoll.
Hi, Joelle Driscoll, 41 Russell Ave. I wanted to start by saying I have voted twice to build a fire station at 637 High Street. I believe we do need a new fire station, and I believe a fire station belongs on the main street with great visibility. It does not belong on an access road off of the street. That being said, I wanted to just reiterate what was said in 2023, the feasibility study done by Doran Whittier. They looked at the landlocked location behind Starbucks. And they said it is landlocked and there is no street access, no street presence for the new facility, the close proximity to residential neighborhoods, and a trail passes through. The feasibility study also stated 637 High Street was the preferred site. That being said, I would like to know if there's any other information regarding access to Starbucks. Because if there's no access, I don't understand why we're spending $325,000 to a landlocked site. Thank you.
Ricky, who have you got over there?
So my question was alongside of hers is how feasible really are those 3 sites? And if we had done this before on 637.
I'm sorry, you got to state your name and address.
Kelly Rickson, 1689 High Street. If we've done this before on the current FS1, why do we only have one option for a design and not numerous ones? And also the same thing, are those 3 sites really something that we should be looking at? And what were the ranges from the bids that you received? And then one last point, I appreciate everyone talking about the transparency, but as a working mom with busy kids like everyone else here, I just don't have time looking at the website on westwood.com. I only look on that when it's raining to see if town fields are closed. So if there's a way that you guys can make that even more in our face, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Julia? Next, after him, and then, yeah. You'll be third.
Oh, thank you. Brian Hawk, 27 Sexton Ave. For the sake of full disclosure, with the town administrator, I'd like to elaborate on the fact that we've already appropriated and spent money on hiring a wetland specialist regarding 2 of those sites, outside of what's being asked for tonight.
Sure, thank you. When the FS1 Steering Committee made its recommendation at the end of February to the Select Board, recognizing that we would be coming to town meeting and that there was obviously a high level of interest and concern from some abutters on the sites that are not the existing fire station, and frankly, given that the apparatus floor has been closed, to make productive use of March and April and to try to get as much good information as we can as a community, I requested at a public meeting, the Select Board granted use of some of their budgeted reserve fund to engage in pre-feasibility work related to this project at those 2 sites, which has included wetland delineation and will also include setback and zoning analysis. Really, at that point, because I think what I'm hearing from many, and that I would agree with, if there's something about these sites that makes them completely unbuildable, and a few have referenced access. Access, you can attempt to either negotiate or take an easement, which is not something you do lightly, but I think the chair of the committee can speak more to that. If there was significant wetlands or protected habitat, that may make it, once you get to that point, not worth further exploration. So we engaged Weston and Sampson for $16,500 to start engaging in that wetland flagging and site analysis work, so that if we are fortunate enough to get your approval on this article tonight, this process can continue moving expeditiously forward. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to go to this microphone, then this microphone. And Ricky, do you have somebody? That person will be third. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. John McCall, 26 Deerfield Ave, Westwood. For the record, we believe we need a new fire station, but we believe we should make it probably half the size. Keep the fire station where it is. It's been there for decades. It's got the best response time, proven best site location from previous feasibility study. And as Conor said tonight on his open statement, don't take away our green open spaces, especially in the middle of the town, Deerfield and Starbucks. A lot of the kids from the library, they use the Deerfield all the time for playing and after-school programs and all that kind of thing. Thank you.
Okay, over here.
Hi, Brian Kamaker, 95 University Avenue. Mr. Moderator, there's a related question that I think is very important that I haven't heard addressed. The reason that we're discussing this tonight is that the town terribly failed to maintain the current building for decades, similar to other buildings that the town has failed to maintain for decades. So in decades to come, maybe 50 years, are people going to be here doing this again? How is the town going to change its maintenance procedures to keep this from ever happening?
You want to answer that, Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The town has maintained this building over time. This is a 78-year-old facility that has been in constant heavy use 24 hours a day, 365 days a year since it was built. A fire station is significantly different than a typical house or building. The weight of the fire apparatus, the exposure to water, diesel exhaust, and the demands of a modern 24/7 operation all take a significant toll on the facility. Over time, those considerations have brought the building to the end of its useful life. At this point, continued repairs, as Conrad said, do not solve the underlying problem. They only extend a facility that no longer meets today's standards. Even were it maintained to mint condition from the day it was opened generations ago, it would be an antique, not an appropriate fire station for today's needs, building codes, and accessibility standards.
All right. Next, we get whoever Ricky's got the microphone for. All set, so we're going to go to this microphone, and then we'll come over here.
Hi, first I would like to begin.
Please
My
state
name is,
your
yeah,
name.
I will. Sandy Chelfie, 766 High Street. First, I want to acknowledge that I heard what you are saying. I hear you. I am in full support of a fire station that meets or exceeds regulatory standards and requirements. I voted yes. I appreciate and recognize the very important role of our firefighters who provide crucial and critical services for all of us in Westwood. I personally am distinctly grateful for our firefighters. I do remain concerned that the landlocked property behind Starbucks remains under consideration as a potential site. My concerns include the loss of green space where walking trails are enjoyed and used by our residents, the loss of businesses to make an entrance to this landlocked property, and the location and its effect on the already congested area of High Street. Using this location will create an exit of the fire trucks onto an already congested area of High Street, competing with all the traffic, and specifically competing with ambulance traffic from Medfield, Walpole, and Norwood as they make their way to Needham. Finally, on the FS1 committee matrix work, I asked for an explanation as to why commercial expansion and expansion of commercial tax base are included as considerations on the potential sites. It is for these reasons I am not in support of Deerfield and Starbucks sites for consideration and would ask that the feasibility study only concentrate on rebuilding the fire station in its original site. Thank you.
Julianne Bride, 20 Whitney Ave. I appreciate the comments made by the committee and by Connor. Just want to build upon that. I've been paying very close attention to this, as have many other people. But the reality is we're close to $3 million in on feasibility studies. And while there might be additional feasibility study and work to be done, we have not addressed the programmatic needs. The committee nor the town has addressed the list put forward that was designed and failed in 2 votes. So why did the 2 votes fail? According to the town, it's cost, which we're trying to fix by shopping different sites, but it's also the size and scope of the building. And we've done nothing with that. The green space is still being used by town and residents as it was a year ago. The paths are still being used. Our environmental concerns are the same. They're all captured in the original feasibility work. I don't think that going back to the same land is going to get a different result. And I appreciate the time and effort everyone's put in. I appreciate that we're trying to bring people along to this process. But since last fall, we've lost occupation of our fire station. We need it now faster and more than ever. So what I'm going to propose, moderator, is that I move to amend the article and to remove.
Do you have that in writing?
Yeah, I do.
Have you presented it to town council?
Nope, I can do that now if you want. Do you want me to finish my statement around the article?
Generally, I rule out of order any motion to amend if it's not in writing and hasn't been looked at ahead of time.
Okay, I wasn't aware, and it wasn't in print, that it needed to be reviewed before the meeting. But I guess my comments are, I think it's better for us to focus on FS1. That property, that site is not valuable to us once the fire station's gone. It's of little use. The green space we have is highly valuable. Once we build, we're not getting that back. And if you go behind Starbucks, you'll see your kids and others go through those trails every day. I used them to get to school 40 years ago, and the trails are as clear as they were in 1982 when I went through them. So let's just preserve what we have, stop wasting time, let's get the firefighters in a fire station that works for them at the current site. Thank you.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the town meeting voters need to see what they're voting on an amendment. We have someone over here?
Okay. Hi, Nancy James, 158 Oak Street. I am a co-chair on the Long Range Financial Planning Committee. And I just want to say that as a town, we're in the very unenviable position of having many buildings that are really at the end of their useful life. So we have a lot ahead of us. We've had to make a lot of tough decisions. If we don't pass this article tonight, I am extremely concerned about the increase in costs. Every day that goes by, and I apologize if that sounds dramatic, but costs are increasing. Nothing will go down. I came to the community forum last October, and I heard from multiple people that they were frustrated that they didn't have different options to look at. I know that the last vote failed. That project is dead. There is no point in talking about or debating the size of the last project. It's history. We need to move forward. And the way that we move forward is acknowledging what people asked for, and that's looking at different sites. Part of that is looking at a flat site, because given the topography of FS1, that was a tremendous driver of the cost of the last project. So no one is saying, just by doing a feasibility study, that it will absolutely be built at that land behind Starbucks or on Deerfield. No one knows. But I do think as a community, we need to take a thoughtful approach, and we need to look at options, because if not, we will end up in the same exact place as we did last time. If we leave it at the current site and we're looking at spending more for a smaller building that doesn't meet the programmatic needs, we will not have advanced this any further. Thanks, Mr. Moderator.
I don't see anybody at any of the microphones. You have somebody up there, Julia? There is a motion to move the question. Motion to move the question. It is seconded, requires a 2/3 vote. All in favor of moving the question, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
What?
I am in doubt. So now we have a motion to move the question. You're going to use electronic devices. The motion to move the question goes to immediate vote. If you're in favor of moving the question, vote yes. If you want against moving the question,
I'm sorry.
a motion to move the question goes to an immediate vote, and it shuts off further discussion. So we have a motion. We have to vote on it. We're going to use our voting devices. The motion before you is, should we move the question, which then would go to the article. If you're in favor of ending discussion and voting on the article, vote yes. If you'd like to keep it open for further discussion, vote no. This requires a 2/3 vote. The vote is now open.
No means more discussion.
Is everybody satisfied their vote has been tabulated? Okay, the vote is closed. Let's see the results. All right, the question is not moved. Who is next? Someone up here was wishing to speak. We had someone over here, and then we'll go over there next.
Hi, Anne Marie Sakala, 39 Deerfield Ave. So a lot of, Jody kept saying that a lot of the same faces were coming to the meetings, and it were the people that were being directly affected. Russell Ave, Deerfield Ave, where many children play. So I really didn't think that Deerfield Ave was a good access. Second of all, there was an architect in our meetings, and she said that if the architect that originally was on the design didn't meet what we needed, then you could go back, not spend extra money, but the architect had to actually deliver what it is that we wanted. That was not revisited. And thirdly, I am not a financial whiz by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm not sure where the term free cash keeps getting mentioned, because none of this is free, you know? And maybe the people that went to these meetings are, you know, little people in Deerfield or Russell, but we matter. And the greater good, everybody else matters too. And free cash, no free lunch. The cash is coming from somewhere, and it's coming from all our pockets. So we really need to think really hard about what's happening here. And yes, we need, I work as a registered nurse, and firefighters, I love them. The uniforms and what they do for us, yeah, I want them to be right there every time. But you know what? I think we can do better. And we have to think long and hard how to spend our money the best way for the firefighters and for all of us involved. Thank you so much.
Okay, next we're going to go up here in the corner, and then we'll let you speak at the microphone.
Eileen Siegel, 257 Alder Road. So we have over 12,000 registered voters in Westwood, and there's, 300-something of us here tonight. That survey that said 474 people, it's not the 12,000 voters we have. I'm looking around, and I see a lot of familiar faces, people I don't even know, that we're always the ones that show up. But then when it comes to a vote, people turn out, but they're not informed. Anyone can pay attention when they prioritize something. And we're all adults, and the acceptance and the normalizing of the lack of responsibility and saying, can you make it easier? Can you show it to us in this way? I mean, we have to help our neighbors as well take responsibility for being present. And if they're going to choose not to be informed, then it's our job to do everything we can to get more information. And if the steering committee has heard from the people that have responded to them that they want more options and they're asking for this, even though I don't like it either, and I voted yes twice. And just to insert this, now operating of FS1, the firefighters can answer this more. What is it, 8 to 10 minutes to Martha Jones and Sheehan? What is it, 10 minutes to have 100% brain damage? So if a child has an allergic reaction, that is what it is? Okay, and we're in this position because we allowed it and did nothing. So I think we need to trust the people who are appointed on this committee and just vote for this. We need more options, because not everybody pays attention and not everybody is here. We're running out of time. What else are we going to do?
Okay, we're going to let this gentleman in this aisle speak, and then I see someone over here.
Point of information, PMA, do they have architects and engineers on staff, or are they strictly project management guys?
Either one of you can come up.
So Walter Hartley is a project manager with PMA. We asked them to be here. I believe they have a pretty broad array of experience, but I'm going to have Walter speak for the firm.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. PMA Consultants is, and the group that I strictly work in are strictly owners project managers. While we do have architects on staff, we do not chase projects in Massachusetts as registered designers. We are one of the OPMs, one of the only OPMs in Massachusetts that focuses primarily on OPM, so our resume is built strictly on our OPM background and our OPM history. So thank you.
Will you be using A&E subcontractors?
We will not be using A&E subcontractors under PMA. As was previously mentioned, there will be a solicitation for designer services that'll be put out pending the decisions that are made here this evening.
So in the feasibility study or whatever study we're doing here, you will not be subcontracting to any other company?
PMA would not be subcontracting. There would be a designer services that would be procured as part of the feasibility study, not under PMA. PMA manages that process on behalf of the town.
So we may have subcontractors, A&E subcontractors that are part of the 325,000 that you're going to be hiring to work with PMA. Is that accurate?
Very close.
I'm sorry, could you just help me understand to make sure you're saying architectural and engineering services when you say A&E?
Yeah.
Okay, can you repeat the question, please?
So, PMA, there's 325,000. PMA is a owner's project management outfit. They're not going to be applying professional engineers and so forth themselves in this. You are going to be hiring subcontractors to them, or?
So we're not hiring necessarily subcontractors to PMA. It's basically
To
like
you.
it's a three.
us.
Sorry. So yes, the owner in this case is the town. You bring in the OPM to help act as your agent and support you in doing things like procuring and hiring architectural and engineering services. The town would be the one hiring.
Right,
Yes.
okay, so.
Okay, your 2
number
minutes
one-
is up. I'm going to
wait,
come over here.
This is information, this is not an opinion.
There have been hearings on this. Now's not the time for this. We're going to go over here.
Patrick O'Connor, 291 Farm Lane. I just hope we give these folks a shot. You guys, the men and women here that protect us, they go home with bloody noses, sinus infections, headaches from the mold. None of you would work in that building. None of you would let your kids spend a night in that building. Give these folks a shot. We just gave the school committee $600,000 for a personnel blender. Let's give these folks, the people that protect us, a shot. Thank you.
We got a gentleman over here.
Steve Coyne, 121 Beech
Julia,
Nut Road.
Someone here would like a microphone. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So-
Tell us your name again.
Steve Coyne, 121 Beech Nut Road. I believe the votes that were originally cast against the station was on the heels of the Pine Street Hill Elementary School project. The project came up. There is a lot of people, seniors in towns, that are worried about the taxes in this town. I've been here 22 years. A lot of my neighbors left. They couldn't afford taxes. I don't believe we should take it out on the firemen, but the capital planning of this town needs to be addressed. 2 new libraries and an old fire station, it doesn't make sense in the long run how this is going along. So I'm sure everybody's concerned about taxes. We have to have the fire station, but let's get the capital planning under control in a better way.
All right, we've got a gentleman in a maroon.
Kilburn Child, 31 Lorraine Road. I think we've got the cart before the horse here. I'd like to see another cost estimate at a lower level. It was rejected last year because it was too expensive, too exorbitant. We can decide where we put it after we figure out what it's going to cost. There may be some minor adjustments, of course, based on the lot size, but the basic structure is going to be the same. So why spend $325,000 now when we have to spend it again later after we do some cost estimates? But let's get the price down where we can afford it.
Does anybody else like? Oh, I see someone over here.
Patrick French, 3 Cranston Avenue. If this article fails, what happens next?
So if this article fails, then we would, it depends on, I guess, how much it fails by. Perhaps there's a debate to reconsider, or if there's clarity on why the base article fails, that's going to inform where we go from there. I do want to address the question of cart before the horse. the whole point of the feasibility and schematic is to do cost estimating, including on sites. It's not as simple as just pick a building design and it's the exact same everywhere. Site work, access, those are significant drivers of cost. So this is really about getting us to a place where we have the information for you to make the best choice on a new station. Thank you.
I have another motion. Move the question. It's seconded. All in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a two-thirds vote in favor. It is a two-thirds vote in favor. We're now voting on Article 22, and we're going to use the voting devices. If you're in favor of the article, vote yes. If you're against the article, vote no. And I remind you, this requires a majority vote. Voting is now open. Is everyone who voted satisfied their vote has been tabulated? Votes are still coming in. Has everybody voted? Who's going to vote? All right, we'll close the vote. See the results. It is a majority vote in favor. You got a motion to reconsider. Is there a second? Motion to reconsider requires a two-thirds vote. Is there any discussion on the motion to reconsider? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of reconsideration, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Nay. Appears to be a vote against reconsideration. It is a vote against reconsideration. Now we're on to Article 23, and I think there's going to be a presentation from Chair Rollins of the Select Board. Town meeting also requires a report be given by the Planning Board to town meeting. I'm going to acknowledge that I have received that report for the record.
Ellen Rawlings, 86 Green Hill Road, also Chair of the Planning Board. Give it a minute. I'm just going to share a very brief summary of our process and our public hearing process and of the warrant articles that we will be asking you to consider this evening. The Westwood Planning Board opened its public hearing on proposed zoning amendment warrant articles in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 5, on January 6th, 2026, beginning at 7 p.m. Said public hearing was conducted remotely via Zoom. During the course of that hearing, the Planning Board considered certain amendments to the Town of Westwood zoning bylaw, and following discussion and acceptance of public comments on each of the proposed articles, the board, by roll call vote, continued its public hearing to January 20th, 2026.
Can we have some quiet, please? We do have someone presenting. Please.
Should I wait?
No, I think they're quieted down now.
Okay. February 10th, 2026, February 24th, 2026, March 10th, 2026, March 25th, 2026, and April 7th, 2026. At its final public hearing session on April 7th, 2026, the Planning Board voted by roll call vote to close the public hearing and to recommend town meeting approval of 9 zoning amendment warrant articles as follows. Article 23, zoning bylaw amendments relative to animal daycare, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw by amending sections of the zoning bylaw related to pet care facilities and/or commercial kennels, including but not limited to Section 2.0 definitions and Section 4.1 principal uses, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 24, zoning bylaw amendments relative to adult daycare, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw by amending sections of the zoning bylaw related to adult daycare facilities, including but not limited to Section 4.3, accessory uses, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 25, zoning bylaw amendments relative to indoor commercial recreation, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw by amending sections of the zoning bylaw related to indoor commercial recreation facilities, including but not limited to Section 4.1.5, the principal use table of commercial uses, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 26, zoning bylaw amendments relative to battery energy storage systems, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw by amending sections of the zoning bylaw related to battery energy storage systems, or BESS, including but not limited to Section 2.0 definitions, Section 4.1 principal uses, Section 4.2 notes for 32 table of principal uses, Section 4.3 accessory uses, and Section 7.6 solar design review and approval, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 27, zoning bylaw amendments relative to definitions, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw by amending sections of the zoning bylaw related to definitions, including but not limited to Section 2.0 definitions, Section 4.1.5 commercial uses, and Section 4.3.2 accessory uses in all districts, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 28, zoning bylaw amendments relative to Administrative Research Office ARO District, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw by amending sections of the bylaw related to the Administrative Research Office, or ARO District, including but not limited to amendments to Section 6.3, enclosures, screening, and buffers, and Section 4.1.5, principal use table, commercial uses, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 29, zoning bylaw amendments relative to dimensional regulations, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw by amending sections of the bylaw related to dimensional regulations, including but not limited to Section 2.0 definitions, 5.4.2 height determination and exceptions, and Section 4.5.3.3 variance or special permit required for new or expansion of nonconformity, or take any other action in relation thereto. Article 30, zoning bylaw amendments and general bylaw amendments relative to short-term rental properties, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw by amending sections of the bylaw related to short-term residential rental properties, including but not limited to Section 2.0 definitions and Section 4.3 accessory uses, and by adding a new Section 8.6 short-term rentals, and to approve certain amendments to the general bylaw by adding a new Chapter 330, short-term rental, to the general bylaw, or take any other action in relation thereto. And finally, Article 31, housekeeping amendments, to see if the town will vote to approve certain housekeeping amendments to various sections of the Westwood zoning bylaw as may be necessary to correct errors or inconsistencies in such sections which may be discovered prior to the conclusion of the public hearing, or take any other action in relation thereto. By a vote of 5 in favor and 0 opposed, the Planning Board voted to recommend that town meeting approve of Articles 23 through 31. Thank you.
Okay, Article 23 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaws related to animal daycare, all as stated within the article. This comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 23? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 23, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 24, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw as they relate to adult daycare, all as further stated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 24? Ms. Hyde, are you waiting to speak? No. Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 24, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw regarding indoor commercial recreation. All is further stated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 25? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 25, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 26, to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw regarding battery energy storage systems. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that you so vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 26? I see a gentleman up here on the left. Please state your name and address.
Sorry, Michael Kraft, 30 Coach Lane. I was confused by the article and would just request a little clarification. Does this affect residential battery backup systems, or it's strictly on a commercial or municipal level?
Ms. Lochner is going to answer that.
This article addresses battery energy storage facilities by type. There are different tier levels that are established by the state. A tier 1 is a very small battery storage facility that many people who have electric vehicles would have in their home. A tier 2 is a slightly larger one. Perhaps if you have several electric vehicles, you would have a tier 2. Tier 3 and tier 4 are much larger facilities. Most, any battery energy storage facilities in this bylaw that are related to solar energy are permitted under the bylaw. Battery energy storage facilities that are larger than tier 2 are permitted, but they're reviewed by the planning board under its solar energy design review section. A BESS, battery energy storage system, that is not related to a solar facility, that's related to other forms of energy, those all go before the planning board for review. They are not permitted in residential districts. They are permitted by special permit on depending on the different phases. It's all spelled out in the bylaw in your book. But if you have an energy storage facility in your home that you might use for your solar energy system or for an electric vehicle, you would still be allowed to have that, and that would simply be a building permit allowance for that.
Now we see someone here at this microphone.
Jody Petroselli, 30 Rock Meadow Road. Nora, can I just ask, how does this affect pre-existing batteries?
It has no effect on pre-existing. So what it's saying is that if you have a new application, if it's for just your general tier 1 solar-related facility, it goes straight to a building permit. If it's for tier 2, it goes to the planning board for its review and then to a building permit. But if you already have a facility at your home, it's not affected by this at all.
Thank you.
Hearing and seeing no other discussion, all in favor of Article 26, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Article 27, see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaws relative to definitions. All is further stated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This article requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 27? Hearing none, seeing none, all in...
Thank you. I read that.
Name and address, please.
Oh, John Lucas, Seal Lane. I read that and I walk away saying, I don't know what it's talking about. It's talking about certain amendments, and it talks about bylaws, amending the zoning bylaw relative to definitions. Okay. I just can't say in all good honesty I can take a vote on that and anything. I have no idea what it's about.
Oh, okay. I think Ms. Loughnane is going to answer that. Was there someone going to speak?
Article 27 is written in your book, beginning on page 39, and it suggests alterations to very specific definitions that are in the bylaw now, and it also recommends new definitions, words that are used in the bylaw but not specifically defined. So the first change is a revision to the definition of the term alterations. Alterations, the way it's defined now, refers to as applied to a building or structure, but it doesn't talk about an alteration to a site, so that is currently undefined. This adds a section to that decision, to that definition, that says as applied to a site, any material change in materials, grading, landscaping, circulation, or other material factor determined by the building commissioner to result in an altered site. So it's just defining what alteration means. Without a change in the definition, alterations mean whatever the building commissioner says they mean as he interprets the use of the word in the bylaw. Another definition in this section is temporary structure. Right now, the definition of temporary structure talks about a structure without any foundation or footings. We add new language to say including a pod or storage container, which is not associated with an ongoing construction project operating under a valid building permit. This came at the request of residents who were concerned about pods being placed on front lawns or in driveways for an indefinite period of time not related to a building permit. So right now, if you wish to use a pod as part of a construction project, that's simply approved by the building commissioner under your construction permit. If you wish to use a pod that's not associated with a project that you're getting a permit for, you need to apply to the building commissioner for a temporary use special permit. So this just makes that clear in the bylaw. Another definition that's addressed here is motor vehicle light service. What this definition change does is it adds language to motor vehicle light service that says it does not include an electrical vehicle charging facility as separately defined, and then we add several terms for electrical vehicle charging facilities. We add a term for accessory electrical vehicle charging station. We add a term for electrical vehicle charging facility, another one for electrical vehicle charging station, and then finally a pay-to-charge electric vehicle charging station. The purpose of these definition changes is to separate out an electric vehicle charging facility from a gas station. Right now, an electrical vehicle charging facility falls under the same motor vehicle light service definition in our bylaw, which would mean that the electric vehicle charging station would only be allowed by special permit in certain areas of the town. This allows a greater ability for businesses that wish to offer charging to residents and people who come to our town who have electrical vehicles. It gives them a greater ability to do that. And then you go to the next section here, and there's an addition to our use chart, which adds electrical vehicle charging facility, and it only allows it in the Highway Business District. For those of you who aren't familiar with our zoning map, the Highway Business District is essentially on Providence Highway and areas off Providence Highway, such as Southwest Park and Glacier and Everett, Glacier Drive off of Everett Street. So it would allow someone who wants to offer electrical vehicle charging to locate a facility in those areas. And then the final part of this article has to do with accessory uses, and it adds an accessory electrical vehicle charging station to be allowed in the local business A and B district, the highway business district, the industrial district, the industrial office district, and the ARO district. So they're very specific changes to the definitions.
Is there any other discussion on Article 27? All in favor of Article 27, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a two-thirds vote in favor. It is a two-thirds vote in favor. Article 28, See if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw regarding administrative research office district. All is further stated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that you so vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 28? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 28, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Article 29. See if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw by amending sections regarding dimensional regulations. All is further stated within the article. Comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that you so vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 29? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of Article 29, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a 2/3 vote in favor. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Article 30. See if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw regarding short-term rental properties. This comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that the town so vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 30?
Mr. Moderator?
Ms. Hyde, sorry.
Hi. Nancy Hyde, 15 Martingale Lane. I'd like to speak to reasons why I think we should not approve this article tonight. Typically, short-term rental requirements, zoning bylaws require tremendous debate and understanding because they often apply in resort areas and high vacation areas. I don't think Westwood fits into those two lanes. And I think what we're talking about here is an unfunded mandate. If you look into some of the language in this article, it requires the town planner to be the enforcing agent. It also requires that somebody live in their house 9 months out of the year. Proving that someone lives in a house 9 months out of the year requires a system of reporting to verify that. We're asking to put the responsibility on someone where we've had some fluidity in that position in terms of it being covered by the town. And what happens when that position isn't filled, it falls to the remaining staff, which is a fairly lean department. So it could come with a burden of added expense to the town, and I don't think we've adequately heard what that might involve. So I encourage people to look at this and say, maybe not this article, maybe not now, and have more consideration to the implications to the town from a cost standpoint, from an enforcement standpoint. And I would end with, this looks like a solution in search of a problem. I don't think Westwood is in need of this kind of bylaw. Thank you. Oh, and if I can use my time, I just want to acknowledge that for the first time in Westwood's history, we have 2 women serving on the select board, and it's our almost 130-year history. So congratulations, Erin.
I wonder if you noticed, we have a chair of the select board, a chair of the planning board, and a chair of the school committee who are all women as well. Okay, next.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Jennifer Kelly, 25 Juniper Ridge Road. I'm here with my husband and neighbors who were the original proponents of this bylaw, and I'd like to tell you why. We'd like to first give a huge thanks to the Planning Board and the Finance Commission for working with us this past few months and with each other. If you don't know what's been going on, this has been going on at least since around October, November, December, so it's been several months. There are currently at least 20 known short-term rentals in the form of Airbnb and VRBO in Westwood, many, if not most, on the Islington side of town because of our proximity to both the Boston and the Foxborough trains. 2 alone are on my street of about 10 houses, 1 directly next to me, 1 down the street. We are here because currently Westwood has not done anything to regulate these. I live in a small 2-street neighborhood, less than 30 houses total. My family and I moved to Westwood after a decade in Boston proper because we wanted to put down roots with our two boys who were then 6 months and 2 years old and now 6 and 8. If we didn't mind random strangers coming and going from our neighborhood, we would have stayed in Boston, where rentals and high turnovers are common. But we wanted to know our neighbors and have our children grow up the way we did, where they run between houses to play with their friends. Our dream of a community neighborhood has been stymied by the Airbnb on our small neighborhood, one right next door and one at the end of the street. It's difficult explaining to my two very smart children why we cannot speak to the people next door because we don't actually know them. It's stressful to not know who is watching us through the backyard of the thin-veiled trees while my kids are playing, running through the sprinklers in their bathing suits. And it's nerve-wracking to not know who the cars are flying around the blind corner while my kids play in the driveway. This bylaw is about the safety of our kids and keeping our residential neighborhoods the way they are. It's unfair to be paying nearly $20,000 in taxes to not know who my neighbors are every week, and this property is rented every week of the year. This bylaw simply seeks to ensure that it stays that way by prohibiting commercial use of properties, but striking a balance, allowing residents to use their properties as they see fit up to 30 days a year. In the end, this is a reasonable limit to reduce the fears that we have about transient neighbors down to only 30 days instead of 52 weeks a year. So we ask you to please stand with us, your neighbors, and instill this very reasonable restriction on short-term rentals, which will not cost the town much money at all, to keep our town community-oriented, safe spaces for our children and families. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Michael DiBenedetto, 95 Tamarack Road. I just want to make a comment that I think that the safety of neighborhoods in Westwood is not something that we're here to debate. And if there are issues in any neighborhood, regardless of whether it's a single family, multifamily, however the zoning is in the particular neighborhood, it's to be addressed. But I don't know that I would inherently assume that because somebody is partaking or choosing to be a part of a short-term rental, that they are inherently a risk to the neighborhood. And I don't know that, I guess in terms of the overall segment or number of short-term rentals that we would expect in the town of Westwood, I'm not sure. I would sort of agree with the first comment I heard that we should consider the balance between, I guess, overregulation, sort of additive nature of this regulation and sort of what it would mean to the town against what known risks or sort of communicated risks have maybe been brought to, be it various safety boards or safety personnel inside of the town. So I just think there needs to be a balance. I would agree that probably further discussion and more analysis is required before we vote on this. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on Article 30? Oh, we do have one gentleman coming down.
Good evening. My name is Terry Kelly. I'm 25 Juniper Ridge Road. As my wife clearly said, I think the key challenge here is that when you move to a residential area like Westwood, you want to know who your neighbors are. When you do not have that comfort and security, and you have strangers coming in on a night or a weekend, that creates a great amount of security concerns for your family. I think what we all need to realize is there are some people that do not have this on their street, but others do. And I would ask everybody to think about what would happen if an Airbnb was living next door to you. How would you like if another car or strange cars were showing up and you would not know who they are? Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay. Ms. Rollins.
Again, Ellen Rawlings, 86 Green Hill Road, Chair of the Planning Board. I just wanted to clarify that we actually we discussed this at every meeting that we continued our public hearing on. I understand maybe people didn't see or attend, but it was discussed at length. I'm a little flummoxed that I understand people feel it could probably have more discussion, but I just want to clarify we had at least 5 continuations of our meeting where we did discuss this at length. And we did hear from a lot of people that they are experiencing this as a problem. I understand if there's not one in a particular neighborhood, you may not have the visibility that there's an issue or that there is an Airbnb in your neighborhood. But we heard both at our meetings and individually, I think many of the planning board members had outreach from people in neighborhoods where they are living with a short-term rental that did express that there have been issues that they didn't necessarily go to the police about, but that's why we brought this bylaw forward, is we heard from the community that this was something that at least several members of the community wanted the town to look at and potentially address. So, thank you.
Is there any other discussion? All right, we're going to use the voting devices on this one. All in favor of Article 30, you're going to vote yes. All opposed, you're going to vote no. Voting is now open. And part of the reason I did that is I just want to state, first, as Josepha Jowdy said at the beginning of the evening, we have a great town here, and a lot of people work very hard. I want to thank some people because it takes a lot of work to get from last town meeting to this town meeting. I want to thank Dottie Powers and Patty and the town clerk staff. Mary Ann LeBlanc has already thanked the Finance and Warrant Commission. I want to thank Connor Reed, Molly Fitzpatrick, Nora Loughnane from the Town Administrator's Office, Mary Ann LeBlanc and the Select Board members, Ellen Rollins and the Planning Board members, Mayor Plotkin and the School Committee members, Pat Ahern, great Town Council, Paul Fitzgerald and Mary Macy Phelps, great Assistant Moderators, Jody Petroselli for the presentation on FS1, and finally, Nikki and Julia for all the great work they did in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and for passing around the microphones. Thank you, everybody. Is everybody satisfied the vote has been tabulated? Yes. All right, let's see the results. It is a 2/3 vote in favor. Article 31, to see if the town will vote to approve certain housekeeping amendments to various sections of the Westwood Town zoning bylaws. All is further stated within the article. This article comes before you on the recommendation of the Finance and Warrant Commission that you so vote. This requires a 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion on Article 31? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of Article 31, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Appears to be a unanimous vote in favor. It is a unanimous vote in favor. Can I have a motion to dissolve town meeting? Is there a second? All in favor of dissolving this town meeting, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Thank you very much, everyone. This meeting is dissolved.